Hi, this is John Berggren, Executive Director for Operations at the National Federation of the Blind, and you're listening to White Canes Connect.
Hey there, PA Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. My name is David Goldstein. I am your first vice president. Joining me today is co-host and White Canes Connect creator, Lisa Bryant. Lisa, what's on tap today?
A very exciting and very insightful conversation with John Berggren. John is not only operations director of the facilities of our national headquarters, but he's been planning conventions for 10 years. And one thing I will say, you'll hear me say it in the episode, you would think that he would sound stressed, edgy, have to go, I'm on the clock. But he's very even-tempered. He's got the best personality, or I should say the best approach to what is our biggest event every year.
And as many folks know, the convention is the end-all be-all for how the whole organization runs. And so there is a lot of planning involved. And as you'll hear John say, years in advance, figuring out where they're going, how they're going to do everything. And the fact that he spent the hour with us to record this episode, I can't emphasize it enough how appreciative we are for John doing that with 3 weeks to go before convention.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, John. And Lisa, again, a lot of great insights of the upcoming convention and a look back at some of the others as well.
And he mentions a few things, maybe few teasers that should really get you jazzed up about New Orleans this year. So
no pun intended there, right?
Oh, yeah, none at all. So let's listen to our conversation with none other than John Berggren.
John, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here with you guys. Looking forward to it.
So John Berggren, what a delight. This is probably, when things are really revving up for you, just weeks away from the national convention. So we really do appreciate you carving out some time for us and giving us sort of like a behind the scenes peek into what all goes into convention planning, which is only one of the hats you wear. But before we get into all of those details, just tell us a little bit about you, your, career trajectory, and when did you first come to the Federation?
I didn't start out here. I went to school to be an industrial engineer and worked in manufacturing for a while. And, career paths take those twisty turns. And I gradually made my way to the nonprofit world and eventually ended up here at the National Federation of the Blind. That was, believe it or not, back in 1999. So I've been here just a little while. At that time, I probably had never had a conversation with a blind person. And so I was very, very new to blindness and certainly brand new to the Federation. But it's been an exciting trip and obviously one I haven't felt any desire to change course from.
Yeah. So when you took that first job back in, you said, did you say 99?
Yeah.
What position were you responding to? And why did you think, not having any prior engagement with the blind community, why did you not think that was an obstacle at all?
Well, to be honest, that was back in the days of newspaper ads, and I responded to a post office box. I had no idea
Oh, wow.
what organization I was submitting my resume to, but the requirements struck me as very compelling. So I came to interview with Dr. Maurer, who was president at the time, and had a conversation with him, and he hired me to work on the NFB-NEWSLINE platform at the time. We were decentralized back then, and so we were every program, every affiliate had their own, or at least one of maybe more than one, NEWSLINE boxes in their state, physically in their state. And so I would build those and go and install them around the country.
Interesting.
Well, that really is interesting. I had no idea of that.
That was back in the day of modems, and it was how we got our data. It's changed
Uh-huh.
an awful lot since then.
And when did things change to what you're doing now? Like, give us a sense of, the path that, as you said, careers can change, outside of one organization, but yours is evidently, evolved into quite a few different things. So give us a little more detail about that.
I was working part of NFB-NEWSLINE at the time. My work sort of fell into the IT group here at national headquarters. And so I began taking on more responsibilities related to our IT activities. And at the time, that was under Mary Ellen Jernigan. And at some point, Mrs. Jernigan said, you should learn more about convention. And I began working with her on some small aspects of convention and sort of shadowed her at a number of conventions, gradually taking more responsibility. And I guess my first convention for which I was completely responsible was in 2015, which,
Okay.
as it turns out, was President Riccobono's first convention as president.
And where was that in 2015?
That was in Orlando.
Okay.
And we wanted to make a big splash for our 75th anniversary.
Uh-huh.
And President Riccobono said, well, we're a little new at this, but let's set a world record. And John, what do you think? Can you do this? And we decided, sure, this shouldn't be that hard. But it was a little more work than we were anticipating, but it made for a memorable first convention.
So when you say he wanted to set a world record in terms of how many attendees, what did he mean?
So we were looking for something that the Guinness Book of World Records would certify as a world record. We thought maybe the largest Braille message, and they sort of steered us to the umbrella mosaic, the largest umbrella mosaic. And so 2,460 people made up our logo and tagline at the time in the parking lot of the Rosen Center.
Uh-huh. Wow, this is so exciting. So what was that like being in charge of that first year? Do you recall being jittery, excited, too excited to be jittery? What was kind of going through your head?
Yeah, it was exciting. I was a little nervous about the world record. It's not the kind of thing you want to try for and very publicly not quite achieve. So, yeah, I think probably there was enough going on that I didn't have time to think too much about the jitters.
Yeah, probably like some serious decompressing after all of that, though.
I did sleep pretty well when I got home.
Mhm. For those of us attending convention, it just happens. It seems so effortless, and I am sure that is not your reality. Tell us a little bit about, because I'm also sure this is not a one-man show. So who helps you with this every year? What's your team look like? Are they other NF Federation staff people, or do you contract out? What's your support system?
I would say we ought to at least include or tip a hat to the 3,000 Federationists who attend convention. That goes a long way to helping make it happen. Here at the national office, we really do have a pretty broad team, and a lot of folks have been at this for many years. So for many of them, it's muscle memory. So we spread the responsibility across multiple departments, and Dr. Jernigan apparently used to say that really there are only two seasons to the year. There's before Christmas and before convention. And at this point, we're planning even farther ahead than that.
Yeah.
But we do start meeting probably in earnest in the fall of the year prior. Not too often, once a month, we get our planning committee together and we pick up momentum throughout the next 9 months. And we really do rely heavily on a broad number of folks. And yes, many of them are here at the national office, but we have some very dedicated Federationists across the country who volunteer at our Independence Market, who jump in as ambassadors to be talking signs on site. Plenty of folks who do plenty of planning of sessions in advance. And of course, our host affiliate, wherever we're landing, our host affiliate plays a big role. So yes, hardly at all a job of one.
Yeah.
Truly takes a village.
It seems like most folks who work at the National Center, and I didn't realize this until this past weekend, talking about the cookies. And Joe was telling us how she was going to be driving down to New Orleans with Tammy. And I thought, okay, here's the lady that I only know her as the person who does the food when there's an event there. But she was telling us all the other things that she does in the building. I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm guessing that, and then later on when we did some of the mock IEPs, all the other folks who came in on Saturday, Stephanie and John and Jesse and Melissa and all those folks. So everybody does more than you might be in communications or the cookie lady, and you're doing all these other things as well. Is that seems how it goes for most folks there?
I think for the longest time, and we still try to do it, we like to hire generalists to join us on staff. There are going to be some particular specific talents we're looking for. We don't want to have to train a software developer from scratch, but you really do have a number of jobs if you are a member of the national office staff. And really, no matter what your job looks like the other 51 weeks of the year, chances are very good that you're going to be doing something entirely different when it comes to convention. So Johanna is going to be handing out registration packets, and Tammy is going to be ensuring that the ballrooms are set properly for general sessions. And Paul Ficcaro, our director of facilities, is going to make sure that we're getting folks registered for people who are on site for the first time. So really different jobs for that week.
Does it make it difficult when, as far as talking about registration, because you're not in the same place every year? I know with me, it takes me a little bit of time to get used to figure out where everything is and to get a feel for, oh, I've got to go this way, I've got to go, there's stairs I got to find, or whatever it is. Does it make it difficult because each year it's a new hotel, the elevator system may be a little weird, and does that make it difficult on your end because you've got to say, oh, well, this is going to be strange for some people. Let me make sure we have some staff over here, or whoever may be in charge of that. Is that how that works out?
I guess I've not thought of it as being more difficult. To me, maybe the inverse. Returning to a destination where we've been before does definitely make it easier. But we do some initial site visits early on and think about where might our pain points be. Dan Burke and Corb O'Connor are the co-chairs of our ambassadors committee. And so we'll talk about where those trouble spots might be, where we think we're going to need to deploy ambassadors, benefit most from our talking signs. We'll do our best to describe the layout of the hotel in advance so people have something in their minds when they arrive at the hotel. And of course, probably since before the pandemic, we've had indoor navigation companies who are interested in trying out their system. And it's often that one or two or more will have some sort of offering to assist with indoor navigation at the convention hotel.
And do you have that this year in New Orleans? Do you have a couple of ways to do that or not yet?
Yes, I have not gotten the latest updates, but I know that Good Maps was working to map both the Marriott, our headquarters hotel, and the Sheraton, our overflow hotel, but also host to the exhibit hall and Independence Market. So Good Maps is one mechanism. XR Navigation was also exploring some options for the exhibit hall, I believe. So I think, yes, we will have some of those available, and I expect that there will be information both on our website and in our mobile app, the convention mobile app.
And has that app dropped yet? I know I think it's usually the same app, just updated with the current year. Is that right? Every year?
Correct. I think that you may need to download a new version if you are an Android user, but those invitations should go out June 17th of this year. So if you've registered for convention, you can expect an invitation to your email address, and you'll be able to get the fresh version of the agenda and all of the information that goes along with that.
So is the agenda also that same date, John? What did you say, the 16th, 17th?
17th, Tuesday the 17th. No, actually, the agenda is available now on our website.
Oh, wonderful.
Available currently in HTML, but over the next couple of weeks, you'll find a BRF file up there. Typically, we post a Word document. There will be a Spanish translation, audio versions of the agenda. It seems to me there's another version I'm forgetting about, but plenty of options to access what's going on while at convention.
It seems to me, though, with the app, and talking to a few people last year, just to use the app because you can schedule which places you want to be at whatever times they're scheduled. It's set up perfectly to remind you, oh yeah, I wanted to go to that. And if I had to leave it to either a Word document or just the web page, I would never remember where I was supposed to be. So that is something that I think is so helpful, the app itself.
Yeah. That app that got us through the two pandemic conventions to create that virtual experience, maybe a little more like an in-person convention, although there was no comparison. But we heard from our members, wait, don't leave that, don't let go of that app. Keep bringing it back. So we've definitely done that.
I would love later on to just talk about the difference of doing that virtual experience. But before that, let's talk about New Orleans. So this is not our first time. This is what, third? Well, next year will be the third time or the fourth time?
I think this will be our 6th visit.
Oh my golly, I was way off. Okay, wow. So for
going way back.
Going way back. Okay. Well, there are some folks that go way back, and I don't think anyone really thinks if you've been to one convention, you've been to them all. But there is a sort of, like you mentioned earlier, muscle memory of rhythm. What though can people get really excited about this year? How does New Orleans look this year as opposed to, I think it was 3 years ago we were just there?
2022. Yeah, 3 years ago.
So what's it looking like so far this year that makes it a little more special, do you think?
Well, I think familiarity is one thing. You alluded to that earlier. People who are returning after 3 years will, I think a lot of the spaces will come back to them. They haven't changed really much at all, so it will feel familiar. That's definitely a benefit. I think we've got some really exciting programming this year. I did a quick search last week, and I think this is going to be our AI convention. There are at least 10 breakout sessions that mention AI. So there will be a lot of talk about technology and how artificial intelligence can help the blind community, and how we can leverage it. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Of course, the city itself, there are maybe fewer options in the hotel in terms of food outlets, but you step outside the door and
sky's the limit.
Yeah, within the next block or two, you've got more choices than you could hit all week. So that to me is also exciting. I think, well, every year since the pandemic, we've picked up another 100 folks in attendance. I think our family is growing back to the levels where it was before the pandemic. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah.
So you mentioned outside of the hotel and in restaurants and things like that. Do you get a chance to enjoy that and go to these different places, or are you so busy that you don't even have time for that?
I'll sneak out at some point during the week, early one morning, to get a beignet from One World Cafe. There is a lot going on, and even as a member, I think you have to plan carefully because you want to get to everything. And it's tough.
How far out do you, like, when do you actually land in New Orleans? Because I'm sure you're ahead of the start date of the convention. How early will you get out there?
So this year, 2 days before we get rolling in earnest, that gives us a chance to, well, one, to unpack, but then start walking the hotel, make sure that everything is working as we'd expected it to meet with the hotel department heads to see if they've got any questions or concerns. And then that second day, we we meaning our national office staff, we have two 26-foot box trucks that will begin unloading for all sorts of materials for convention. Certainly the independence market. We put a lot of things on the truck, but registration materials, individual breakout session materials. There's a lot to unpack. So we'll spend a day doing that. And what used to be setup day, the first day, and then sort of became seminar day because we started to have more seminars, is, if we hit the ground running at 8 a.m. on that first day, there's already a number of sessions going on. So it doesn't take long for the noise in the lobby and the busy hallways to pick up.
And are you there for any couple of days after everything ends officially?
Sometimes, yes. I may tack a day on to see if I can make it out into the city to see what I may have been missing.
Yeah.
Mostly, I know that after the convention, I'm ready to spend a day sleeping late. So I'd rather do that in my own bed than a spring
Right.
city.
Right. I wondered about that too. I wondered how much, because David was just asking, how much of the city do you get to see? How much of the convention do you get to sit on? Are you at the banquet? Are you at any of the sessions?
So very much so, for sure, at general sessions and the banquet. I definitely don't want to miss a door prize. I try to poke my head into as many sessions as I can.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'll be in a session and realize, wait, I've been here for the last hour and a half. I've got to check out something else. And it's good to know what is going smoothly and what may need extra attention. So often in motion throughout the week, but definitely you can find me in the ballroom during general sessions, and for sure wouldn't miss the banquet for the world.
So you announced, or the Federation announced, how many cities do we already know? The next 4, I think. We know?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that, now, I have only, full disclosure, I have only gone to 2. Vegas was at 2019. That was my first, and then last year in Orlando.
Okay.
So I didn't know whether or not it was typical to announce that many locations in advance. Is that a little more unusual to know ahead of time the next 4 cities?
Yes. First, I'd say congratulations on making it home from Vegas. That hotel that's tough, a tough hotel for your first convention.
Yeah.
But no, for a while, going way back, and this is through the 60s and I think early 70s, the convention itself used to vote on where we would go the following year.
Right.
Dr. Jernigan realized that wasn't necessarily a fiscally sound possible when everybody, of course, was going to want to go to Hawaii. So,
so they didn't even have choice. It was just random. Hey, where do you want to go? It wasn't even like a voting on a selection of cities.
I think various affiliates would lobby for the convention to come to their state.
Interesting.
So at least as long as I have been involved, we typically announced next year's convention.
Right.
At some point during the current convention. Of course, we spent quite a number of years in Orlando at the Rosen properties, and I think we announced several of those conventions in advance. So certainly not unheard of. I think we want to balance. You don't want folks to say, well, I'm really looking forward to Chicago, so I think I'm going to skip the next 2. I'd like folks to come to everyone. But I think it gives people a chance to get excited about what's coming.
I agree.
It does, I would say it does sort of indicate how far in advance we start thinking about future conventions.
Yeah.
So it does go back even back before you would announce all those, like last year it was the 5, including this year's in New Orleans, and then Austin and Chicago. So you were thinking, even going back a few years, you were thinking, okay, next year is going to be here. Where can we go the following year? And you start negotiating with the hotels. And how does that all?
Yeah. And part of the reason we start that early is it's tough to say to a city, hey, we've got 3,000 of our closest friends coming. Do you have space for us next summer? We really are. There are only a handful of cities that have hotels that are big enough to house us under a single roof. We broaden the scope a little bit more when we do this year's approach as we're doing in New Orleans, where we can split our members between two hotels that are very close and still they have enough space for everything we need. We're looking for two 30,000 square foot ballrooms and 3 dozen breakout rooms and 1,500 sleeping rooms. That limits what your possibilities are. So we want to look as early as possible so our options aren't blocked by other conventions.
Yeah.
And then, David, as you pointed out, we've got a couple years in Austin and a couple years in Chicago, and that being willing to look at more than 1 year gives you a little more negotiating power in terms of room rate. And that's one of our primary focuses, is to try and keep things affordable for our members. If you're going for the whole convention, that adds up pretty quickly.
Sure.
And you don't have your own kitchen to go make a peanut butter sandwich, so food gets pricier. So we're looking for the best deal we can, and the farther out we look, the better our chances are.
So I don't want to take the eye off the New Orleans convention. The two in Austin and then the two in Chicago, are they both going to be at the same properties each of those 2 years?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They are. Yep.
Stepping back into New Orleans, again, we were there a few years ago. The logistics. So there are still rooms as of this recording in the hotels, in the Marriott and the Sheraton, or is one sold out and they're still in the other? Is that the case? There's still some space available?
The Marriott has rooms on a couple of the nights during convention. So if you were just coming in for a night, it might be worth checking. But the Sheraton does have space for the full week. And let's see, I think there are 9 more days that we've been able to negotiate for an extension. But they've told us that June 14th is absolutely the last date you can get a room at convention rates. So if folks are on the fence, time is of the essence.
Okay. And as far as the two hotels go, I wasn't at the one in New Orleans. I've been to 3.5 conventions. The front half of the Vegas one was my issue. You talked about going home early. We got there late because of some travel issues.
Oh, yeah.
But the two hotels are in the middle of the block. Is that correct? You can't just walk out the door of the Marriott across the street to the Sheraton, right? You got to go up to the corner, and I mean, you can if you want to play Frogger to get across, but is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And yes, you can do the Frogger approach. You've got 2 lanes of traffic in both directions and the trolley that goes down the median in the center. So I'd recommend the corners, and I guess the corner on the north end of the block is probably the closer of the two, but maybe a little bit busier than the other.
Earlier, you had mentioned that since the pandemic, the conventions have grown by roughly 100 members coming to the respective conventions. What kind of numbers are you looking for this year? And remind me again, which was the largest convention? I used to know it, but I've since forgotten.
So a source of pride for the Crescent City is that they still hold the attendance record, and that was set back in 97 when we had, let's say, I'm looking now, 3,347 attendees registered. We came very close in 2019 in Las Vegas to breaking that. And we felt sure that when we returned to New Orleans in 2020, we are going to break that attendance record.
But alas.
Oh. Yes. The plans of mice and men. So Las Vegas in 2019, we were up close to 3,300. Back out of the pandemic, mid-2000s, I think, is where we were. 2,400 that first year, I guess. So still bigger than a lot of our conventions, certainly prior to the aughts. We weren't always seeing that many folks. So those numbers were still good, but not pre-pandemic labels. So I hope that we'll see 2,900 folks this year.
Okay. I remembered in Vegas. I knew that we were getting close, but I couldn't remember the numbers and I couldn't remember which city. I thought it was New Orleans was the winner at that point. And it'll be interesting to see if we get and get close to 3,000 this year, and hopefully that's the case, because it sounds like a lot of folks liked, I know, talking to the people that went in 2022, really had a great time. And the flip side is, I don't think it matters where the convention is, as long as all the programming, and you mentioned AI, and everybody's ears perk up when I know when I do a video on my own YouTube channel and it has AI mentioned in it, there's always more views, because everybody's always interested in learning about something that could help them, whether it's the Ray-Ban Meta glasses or Be My Eyes or whatever it might be. It just gets more attention, it seems. So now, are the sessions not, I know general sessions probably live on somewhere, either on audio and or video, but do the breakout sessions early on, the first couple of days, are they recorded at all or no?
No, they are not. And I think maybe we've occasionally considered recording some of them, but even compared to when I started taking over conventions for Mrs. Jernigan, they have continued to grow in size and complexity, and the staffing and the equipment to record all of our sessions. If you include our affiliate caucuses, in 6 days we are at more than 200 sessions throughout the week, and which is fantastic. It's impossible to find not to find something that's going to interest you, but it would also be an enormous amount of material. So we focused on the board meeting and the general sessions and the banquet. And as you had mentioned, David, there are certain sessions or certain presentations from our general sessions, and the banquet speech from the president, his presidential report from general sessions. Those you can find on our website from past conventions and listen to those over and over.
John, you mentioned earlier, I think David brought up the whole topic of negotiating. And I wonder, have you, has your team, the Federation, is there this price point that we just can't go beyond? Is that like an already agreed upon number? I'm sure it is. So I guess that's the first part of my question. And then what all do you have? Give us a sense of more the give and take. Maybe there is a city or hotel or whatever that you really want to go to or work with, but you have to be mindful of staying within that certain price point. What's the negotiations to get to that sweet spot look like?
So yes, we do have a maximum per night rate.
Yeah.
And if we think we're going to have to explore exceeding that level, we would go to the board and talk it over with the national board. That's because that's not a decision we made lightly. And I remember back, let's see, well, I think 2019, Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, that was the last time we were under $100 a night, which was still amazing, but it was becoming more and more difficult to leverage or to hang on to that rate. Yeah. And of course, it seems like pent-up demand post-COVID has sent hotel prices
soaring, huh?
Yeah. Disproportionately for the number of years it's been. They really are getting higher and higher. So we are looking for certainly hotels, but even cities. We'll approach a city's convention and visitors bureau saying, we're really interested in coming to your city. What can you do to help us negotiate better rates? I think Houston was a great example of just a fantastic partnership with the organization Visit Houston, which really wanted to bring us to Houston. And they worked very hard on our behalf to get rates to where we needed them to be. There are things about our convention that make it, I think, more appealing, or should make it more appealing for hotels because of how busy we are throughout the week. Our members don't spend a lot of time going outside of the hotel for meals. So if you have outlets in your hotel, we're going to hit those hard, and you're going to make money just because our blind family has to eat somewhere. And so you're going to make money in your outlets. So why don't you drop your room rate another $10 a night? So I think you look for those selling points.
Yeah.
Having a banquet for 1,500, 1,800 people,
Mhm.
that is
Some
very
leverage.
attractive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so using those to negotiate. And of course, if you're considering the same hotel chain in multiple cities,
Yep.
that can help us as well.
I like it. I like your tactics.
Mrs. Jernigan was a shrewd negotiator. I should
Oh.
aspire to her skill set.
Ah, so you learned from the best.
Yeah.
Let's go down memory lane a bit. What were some of the most memorable conventions? Do you have a favorite city?
Personally, I really did like Houston. I don't know if I have a favorite hotel. I think actually the Hilton Anatole, which we went to a number of times in the earlier part of the 2000s, there were limited food options, but everything was under one roof. We could squeeze almost our entire convention attendee body in that hotel and had
Mhm.
plenty of space to meet. That was a good destination. I don't think I've been to a city yet where I've thought, boy, this is terrible.
Well, it's funny because that was gonna be the flip side of the question. You don't have to name the city, we'll protect the innocent, but I wondered if they were like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about us again. We will never darken your doors." And if that were the case, what would have been the deal breaker? But maybe we could spin the question this way. What does make working with a hotel, a city, just the whole location, the package of the location, what are some of the deal breakers? Is it their flexibility? Or, I know price is always,
Sure.
a factor, but what are some of the other things that really make or break, a contract with a city or a hotel?
Yeah. I think that it's unlikely we'll be back in Las Vegas anytime
Ooh,
soon, or maybe ever.
okay. Okay. Oh, you
And
said
not,
the name. Okay.
I, th- I think, well, there were two really big challenges with New Orleans. One is maybe three.
You
It's
mean
not a,
Vegas?
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking much more near term.
You're in the now. That's okay.
Yeah.
You're in the now.
A block in Las Vegas could take you 10 minutes,
Yeah.
15 minutes to walk. It's
Yeah.
not a walkable city. It's expensive for our
Mm.
members to stay 7 days, and this has nothing to do with the Mandalay Bay. In fact, I would say the third challenge is just how difficult it is to navigate a hotel that is so enormous.
Mhm.
And Mandalay Bay actually was one of the more compact hotels
Yeah.
we could find that had meeting space big enough for us.
Mm.
But I think in terms of what might be deal breakers, a lot of it is attendee feedback. And I think
Mhm.
we heard from our members that great convention. I don't know about going back to Las Vegas anytime soon.
Mhm.
That is if we continue to look and somebody from Las Vegas says, oh, wait a minute, we've got the perfect place. It's either just been built or it's been renovated. If it's a fit for us, I think we would consider it again. But,
Mhm.
member feedback for sure, that can be a deal breaker.
Just being in Vegas a few months ago or last month, I guess, just getting through the way everything is set up there, where the convention space is on one side, the hotel space is on another side, and you've got to go through the casino to get from one to the other. And it's not like a grid layout like a city.
Right.
It is, you got to make a 45-degree angle at this slot machine, turn left at the craps tables, and then maybe you'll find the escalator up to the ballrooms where everything is going to be happening. And that happened to me several times in Nevada, and to a couple other folks who were wandering through the casino trying to get from the ballrooms to the hotels.
Very much by design.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's both the drawback and the thrill of the city is
Mhm.
of
Right.
Las Vegas. I think one of the really compelling things for a convention is the hotel staff.
Okay.
There are hotels, perfectly nice, good layout, and the staff is adequate. But I think we've been to hotels where the layout is good, but the staff is extraordinary.
Mm.
They get who we are. They know what's
Yeah.
important to us. They have a similar mindset that can make a world of difference in
Sure.
the experience for our members and how smoothly things go. And so I think we've been fortunate to encounter some really terrific hotel staffs over the years. And for those, we find ourselves going back or
Right.
inquiring later on, hey, any chance you've got another year sometime in the future?
Do you work with staff in terms of educating them on how to interact with our community?
For sure. We'll do a very small amount of that when we're having our initial conversations with the hotel and
Mhm.
after we've signed a contract, but we'll often leverage our local chapter
Mhm.
and our local
Makes
affiliate
sense.
to sit down with staff and talk about let them ask questions.
Yeah.
Talk about what does blindness mean and what should you expect and what do we expect, because I think that is important
Mhm.
for lots of convention spaces. Either
Mhm.
they haven't experienced a blind convention before, or they haven't experienced a convention with our philosophy. And so making sure that everyone is up to speed on what our expectations are is important.
I just want to briefly, again, talking about going down memory lane, I'm just very curious, what were some of the differences other than, of course, not being in person, but what was the
Mm.
planning of a virtual convention like for you?
Yeah, I would say that was almost more stressful than
Oh, wow.
setting a world record
Yeah.
because we were good at in-person convention.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for 80 years.
Yeah.
And what we discovered, at least in 2020, that has changed some since then, was that there's no platform that can do it all.
Mhm.
And certainly there are lots of platforms that are not accessible,
Mhm.
which surprises no one, but it becomes an even bigger problem when,
That's your main source of communicating.
right.
Mhm.
And we've got to figure something out in 3 or 4 months. So I think once we got those pieces in place, it was thinking about what can we do to make this feel intimate, to make it
Mhm.
feel like we still are getting together.
Mhm.
Now we talk. This is something that's very much a part of our conversation with hotels when they say, well, is this going to be a hybrid convention? And we know that there is no substitute for being in person because while the general sessions and the banquet and the breakouts are terrific,
Mhm.
it's those incidental conversations you have outside the exhibit hall
Mm.
with someone about, well, why do you like the Braille watch you have?
Uh,
Or how did you find your career path to become a school teacher? Uh,
Mhm.
and learning from peers about what works. Those are powerful. I think that our convention to me, at least for that first day or two, feels like a really big family reunion. You're
Mhm.
seeing the people you haven't seen for a year
Mhm.
because they across the country, but you look forward to seeing one another every year. That's hard to do in the virtual space. And so I think no matter how good the technology gets, we're always going to be an organization that focuses on those in-person conventions. So that was a challenge for those years where we were virtual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Oh, well,
having
hopefully
said
we
that,
don't revisit that
oh yes,
anytime soon.
let's not. That first year though, in 2020, I think we had over 7,000 folks register. So clearly,
Great
there are
day.
folks that we're not connecting with for our in-person conventions. So I think that's where some of our virtual convention experience is important.
Mhm.
And for folks who are listening to the podcast and think, you know, I'd love to go, but I can't afford it.
Mm.
I I don't have the time to take off or
Mhm.
can't travel for health reasons. The virtual convention experience, you can register for that actually all the way up until, and I guess even during convention. And you can listen to the board meeting and the
Mhm.
general sessions and the banquet. And there are a few sessions that are sort of virtual only. I suppose if you were there in person, you could tune in, but you're probably down on the exhibit hall floor. And there are a couple of virtual events as well in advance of the convention. And so we do want folks to tune in, even if they can't make it in person, because there is still opportunity to connect with those in New Orleans.
And to register for the virtual portion, that there's no cost to that. Is that right?
There is a $10 registration fee.
Okay.
Because I registered virtually.
We have found that that doing the hybrid thing is not inexpensive, but at the same time, we don't want that to be a barrier to people registering or to participating and joining. So, and even with the in-person registration fee, if you go to a software conference, the Apple Developers Conference, you'll pay $2,400 to register for 3 days. But we don't want that kind of barrier for people. We want them to participate.
Last year, there was axe throwing and a few other things, all encompassing. I know I think there was rock wall, and the axe throwing was what caught my attention, and to me was the first time I'd ever done that, and I thought it was really, really cool. And this year, is there something similar to that coming up? What do you have along the lines of outside of the general sessions and some of the normal breakout sessions this year?
I know there's an opportunity to learn to square dance if you haven't done that before. I think the Sports and Recreation Division, who did the carnival, we don't have the kind of outdoor space, actually, or the indoor space that we had in Orlando. So they'll be introducing folks to beep baseball. And if you know Ron Brown, who was a longtime leader, that still remains a leader in our organization, but was on our board for many years. Yeah. Ron was part of that Indianapolis Thunder team. And so they've got a movie that I think I heard is narrated by Jesse Eisenberg.
Wow.
It's supposed to be a great film. So that'll be an unusual treat. There are some, I guess it's not necessarily too far off the beaten track, but there are going to be quite a few product demos this year from exhibitors that will be in breakout sessions or dedicated rooms outside of the exhibit hall. So there'll be maybe a bigger opportunity than usual to get your hands on things personally and test things out.
That's also great. I know a few years ago, and I guess it was Houston, I had done a couple of things and they went over, primarily I think it was cooking gear. And I thought that was very cool that you could do that. And if you wanted to go up and kind of literally get a feel for it, you could do that. And there's something about that when, you could order it at Amazon or wherever, but you have no idea what it's going to be like when you get it. And here you have the chance to really give it the once over to see if it's something you think you may need. Going forward, and speaking of Houston, I loved Houston because there were so many things so close to the hotels. The ballpark was in walking distance. Many restaurants were within walking distance. Just awesome that it was like that there. Can you divulge the banquet meal? I know I am always surprised when we get there. That's the first time I find, what is it? Everybody say, when is it? What is it? Can you divulge what it will be, or is that a trade secret?
It is often a trade secret. I think that I can, in all honesty, say I don't know what this year's entree is.
So there you go. You don't have to make anything up.
Right. I can tell you that it's never going to be, for folks who are worried about allergies, it's never going to be seafood. It will never be pork. It will never contain nuts. So you do have the opportunity to request at Banquet Exchange a vegetarian or vegan meal, gluten-free halal meal, but you don't have to worry about, oh man, what if it's shrimp? It's never going to be shrimp.
Yeah.
Certainly the banquet is for me one of the highlights of the week.
Oh yeah, it's all about the banquet food. And getting all gutsied up,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a night to look good. And folks can go to stop at the photo booth on their way into the ballroom to get photographed in their finest. I think we send out digital pictures after convention if folks are interested.
I saw that last year, and it was so packed when I got down there. I thought, you know what, not doing it.
If you're dressed up earlier in the week, there are several opportunities when it is definitely much less busy.
Okay.
You can get your picture taken.
John, before we let you go, I have to ask, are there any cities left to visit?
Absolutely. We'll never give up on maybe, I don't know, maybe finding an affordable city in California. But yes, I think there are still a couple of cities that, I guess, depending on how you frame it, there probably aren't very many cities that we haven't been to at least once. But, we may not have been to a city since 1972.
Yeah.
So I think that there are still some unexplored cities that might have opportunities for us, and we're always on the lookout for a deal and maybe a newly built hotel that's trying to drum up business and has some decent rates. So yes, there are still places I would like to be.
And is that what keeps us from going to West Coast? It's just cost pretty much, right?
Hotel
Yeah.
prices are really expensive. We do
Yeah.
want to look for a place that is affordable for people to fly in to
Right.
from no matter where around the country they're coming. So that's a factor as well. But yeah, it's trying to find a rate that, you don't start negotiations at $285 a night.
$200, yeah.
So Hawaii is off the table because of flying there? Because I don't know if it's cheap for anybody to fly there at that point.
Yeah, I think, or anything else, I think you're going to have to bank on getting your pineapples from the grocery store. Hawaii is probably not in our immediate future.
John, I cannot tell you how delightful this has been speaking with you. And I actually met you. My first time meeting you was Orlando. And I was with my president, Harriet, and you guys were talking, I think, about kids camp, and you left. And I said, "Who was that?" And she said, "Oh, that was John Berggren." I was like, "You mean the guy that does all this? He's so calm." Like, you were just so, I don't know why I expected to see this like frazzled dude, biting his nails, sweating profusely. And even now, you've just been so gracious speaking with us. And I think to me, that's a real talent and a real calling to kind of keep your wits about you with so much. I mean, I think we've only really scratched the surface of just how much goes into this. I mean, there's so many details, and I know it's not all on your shoulders, but you're still at the helm of it and still having to make sure that all of these pieces are coming together. So it's a lot. And the fact that you're still so even keeled, I think, is just testimony to you. So thank you. One last thing. We do want to, not a call to action, but just a note about how we can continue to support what the Federation does and to make these conventions successful. One thing you mentioned was providing feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sounds like that is helpful. And I would guess you would say don't always tell us, the criticism. Like, if there's some praise in there or some kudos, we'd like to hear that as well. But what other ways can people, in their own way, just support the efforts and to make these conventions smoothly, whether it's pre-convention, while they're there, feedback, just what are the opportunities?
It really is an effort of, in the broadest sense, of our NFB family. And feedback is very useful. And to your point, it doesn't necessarily have to be kudos, but if there's something that you really like about convention, let us know, because that's something we should make sure we don't phase out.
Right.
And if you think that there's something that could have gone better, but we want to know about that as well. We during convention week, we run on the support of volunteers. So if you know that you're going to have 4 hours of time that you could volunteer in the independence market to be a demonstrator or a storekeeper, that helps the organization. It helps your fellow members have a better experience when they're going through the exhibit hall. Being an ambassador, and again, you don't need to be an ambassador for the entire week. If you've got an afternoon that you're available, volunteer. We'd love to have your help. And of course, donations always help the organization put on the best convention we possibly can. So I'm sure we'll be talking about our Give 25 program, an opportunity to, I know there's an opportunity to win some nice items if you are a donor for that effort. And we've got a matching donor, an anonymous matching donor for that program, which is pretty exciting. So I think, as always, financial donations do make a difference, but really thinking about what can make the event better, volunteering, and even on the smallest level, if you're coming from a chapter and there is a new chapter member who's never been to convention, offer to meet with them during the week and give them advice. And as you both know from your first convention, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And some sage advice, comfortable shoes, and maybe at times a shoulder to cry on can make the week go a little more smoothly. So yeah, I think helping those around you experience the convention as best they can based on your own personal experience is also very valuable. And it strengthens our movement without question.
And I would add a hoodie to that because the hotels are usually pretty chilly.
That is a great idea.
Who should people contact if they do want to find out what these various volunteer opportunities are? They just know, when they're available. How do they reach out?
So our communications team would kill me if I failed to mention our website at least once. So yes, NFB.org/convention takes you to our main convention page.
Okay.
And between now and convention, there will continue to be updates on that page. So I encourage folks to check back regularly. If you're thinking about registering for the virtual convention experience, you can do so from NFB/convention. The agenda is there in all its formats. And there is a tile on that page that I think says volunteer opportunities. And if you follow that link, you'll be able to fill out a form for the ambassadors committee to say, yes, I'm interested and here's when I'm available. I think there is also a link for volunteering in the market. So there are plenty of volunteer opportunities, and they're all on that page that is just off the main convention page.
We're so grateful for your time and all that you do and all that you have been doing these many years.
It was really fun to be with you guys today. I enjoyed it.
Thanks again to John for stopping by at his probably busiest time of the year to tell us all about what's going to go down in New Orleans coming in a couple of weeks when we are there from the 8th to the 13th. And Lisa, it's going to be disappointing you're not there, but I know you'll be listening online.
I am very disappointed to not be there, especially after our conversation with John. And I just want to share a little anecdote. He mentioned that there's nothing that can replace in-person gatherings. And I just want to share my story. My first convention, like I mentioned, was 2019 in Las Vegas. And I happened to see a woman sitting there in the cafe by herself. She had a guide dog, but she was sitting alone. And I just invited myself to talk with her. And it turned out it was a woman who is a journalist in Florida. I don't remember prior to having a conversation with her feeling the need to say, I studied journalism, but I never did anything with it. And I think I'm ready to go back to it. And she was so encouraging. And that is what I am doing today. And it started during the pandemic. And I really believe that conversation with Elizabeth just sparked that. So that's just my example of you just never know what more you will get out of convention, those chance encounters, those meetups, there's so many opportunities there other than the general sessions and all of the workshops and all of those are great. But the connections you make, I'm still reaping the reward of that.
It really is face to face. And I have thought this, and even at the local level, when some chapters are still doing only virtual chapter meetings, and there is nothing that is better than getting together face to face. With our chapter, Keystone, we always go out to lunch afterwards. So you're building those bonds with the other folks in the chapter. Just like when you go to convention, you're meeting people from around the country who have similar interests with you. And it just is something that can only be helpful as you go forward, whether they do something a specific way with an app or things like what we mentioned in the last episode with Judge Tatel, where one of the tricks when you're walking in the city, you may follow someone who is walking at a similar speed as you and going, you can just jump behind them and just keep following them and you're good because you hear the footsteps. So you pick up stuff along the way that could be helpful in your day-to-day moving forward. There's just nothing that beats the face-to-face. And I understand that, like John said, you may have health reasons you can't go, or financial reasons, or
Mhm.
hopefully you've got this job that you just can't get out of and you're getting paid the big bucks to stay in the
Yeah.
job. But it's so awesome to be together with everyone, and you learn and you help each other. There is just nothing better than getting together with everybody.
Yeah, and I would love for people to really take John up on his offer in volunteering, however small of a time you can give, because it does, when you're talking about 2,000 people doing that, it certainly can add up. So there are ways that you can get involved other than just attending, and you will, again, you never know what encounters or connections you make in doing so.
Yeah, you really do make the connections, even if it's just helping someone find a specific room for a specific session. If you know where it is and you hear somebody wondering out loud, hey, I don't know where I'm going, or they seem to be having some difficulties, go over and help them out, because that is something that, again, you may meet someone that down the road can help you out with something or becomes your best friend. So just do that when you're there. And I'm really looking forward to getting to New Orleans. I know that Liz and I have never been there, so we're looking forward to going. We will be spending plenty of time in the exhibit hall at the Sheraton and crossing at the corner. I would never cross in the middle of a block. I am terrified to cross the street no matter what.
Same, yeah.
Whatever you can do. And speaking of volunteering, this is my call to everybody who's going to New Orleans. We need folks to work the table. And now that the agenda is up, go take a look at the agenda and see what you want to do. And then you'll see the convention hours. I'm going to send something out in another couple of days that will have some blocks of time, just looking for 2 hours at a time, so that it's not taking you away from anything. And if you can help out, I'd love to get you behind our table. We're going to be selling chocolate covered pretzels from Asher's, which is going to be awesome. And maybe we'll have a bag that we can sample. We'll buy a bag so the folks who work the table can sample them. They are
I
delicious.
mean, they have to know what they're selling, right? You have to
That's
be an
right.
informed salesperson.
That's right. And we'll have some Johnson's popcorn to sell. We may have some stuff from hers. We'll have to see on that. But a lot of things will be going on. And the exhibit hall is also very nice to walk around to see what all the other states are selling. Last year, we were next to Puerto Rico. I have a great T-shirt. I was with the other day with Michelle McManus. She had her Puerto Rico T-shirt on that has Braille on the back, Viva la Vida que quieres on the back, which is Live the Life You Want. And on the front, it has a little silhouette of the island with the logo in the middle. And just all sorts of great stuff in the exhibit hall. Again, it's just a great time to go and learn. And you get so charged when you leave there. You say, oh, I can do this and I can do that. And I'm going to do this and so forth. So even though online registration has closed, you can still register once you're down there. And as you heard John say, the 14th of June is the cutoff to get your hotel room at the convention rate. And believe me, the convention rate is a lot better than the general public rate or the AAA rate or the senior discount rate. The convention rate is going to be better than any of those. So you have until June 14th. That's only a couple days away. So make sure if you're on the fence, do it, get your hotel room, and make sure you connect with us in New Orleans. Our caucus is going to be July 10th. If you're on the fence, please go ahead and do it. Airfare is fairly cheap from Philadelphia. Other parts of the state, I'm sorry, I don't know, but I've been tracking it from Philadelphia. Go make your hotel reservation now before June 14th so you can be with us in New Orleans the 8th to the 13th of July.
Yeah. So again, I will not be there this year, at least not physically. I will definitely be there in spirit. Hope this got you even more excited about the convention and also more appreciative of the tremendous work that goes on behind the scenes.
We would love to know if you're planning on going. If you have questions about it, please reach out 267-338-4495. You've got up to 3 minutes. Leave your name and town. If you do, leave a voicemail. We will play it on an upcoming episode. Even if you just have a question and you want to call and ask for Lisa or I to get back to you about it, or at least send your message to the right person who can help you out. Again, give us a buzz. 267-338-4495.
And if cat's got your tongue, you can always email us at whitecanesconnect@gmail.com.
Lisa, what a great episode.
I think so too. Thank you, David. And thank you, John.
Thanks for listening. Take care.